Pregnant wife sends her cheating millionaire husband to prison and lives happily with the CEO. The soft hum of violins at the Four Seasons Hotel dissolved into a dizzying drone in Sarah Collins's ears as her world splintered right before her eyes. Moments earlier, she had lifted her husband Andrew's phone, abandoned on the polished marble table, and discovered a string of incriminating messages. Devastating evidence of secret rendezvous with a sultry stranger. Sarah could feel the life they'd built collapsing like a house of cards. Her baby's imminent birth should have been a cause for celebration, yet betrayal burned through her veins instead. If only she knew that this treachery was the first step toward both her downfall and her ultimate salvation. Sarah Collins had always been the kind of woman who believed in fairy tales. Growing up in a snug Midwestern town, she was raised by loving yet modest parents who taught her the value of hard work, kindness, and close-knit community. Her father served as a high school English teacher, entertaining her with classic novels and epic poems. Her mother coached the school's softball team and showed her how to combine discipline with compassion. From an early age, Sarah dreamed of a life that soared beyond the provincial borders of her hometown. She spent weekends thumbing through glossy magazines, marveling at designer gowns and celebrity galas. Even if she was never personally dazzled by materialism, she craved excitement, connection, and the pulse of a world that felt distant from her cornfield horizons. That sense of yearning carried her to a design school in Los Angeles, where she discovered a deep passion for interior aesthetics. On a crisp evening not long after her graduation, she found herself invited by a chance acquaintance to a glamorous charity gala for a local children's hospital. Sarah felt like a fish out of water, wearing a borrowed dress and clutching a second-hand purse. Yet, from the moment she stepped under the gilded chandeliers, she resolved to make the most of the experience. There, among Hollywood elites and philanthropic moguls, she crossed paths with Andrew Collins. Taller than most men in the crowd, Andrew had a meticulous sense of style and an air of effortless confidence. People flocked to him, and the subtle hush that followed his remarks hinted at great influence. Sarah caught his eye when she accidentally backed into a waiter, nearly toppling a tray of champagne flutes. Andrew intervened with swift poise, sparing the waiter a crash. Their eyes locked in that comedic moment, and Andrew's smile lit an instant spark. In the weeks that followed, Andrew pursued her wholeheartedly. He was direct about his wealth. He owned a booming real estate empire, but he was equally keen to portray himself as a humble man, shaped by tough beginnings. Late at night, as they spoke over candlelit dinners, Andrew confided how he'd grown his business from a single property investment into an impressive portfolio. Sarah found his ambition and charisma intoxicating. Despite her initial wariness, she let herself be swept up by Andrew's charm. Within a year, Andrew proposed on a starlit beach in Malibu, a heart-shaped ring illuminating Sarah's trembling hand. Reporters and society bloggers feasted on the couple's story, a self-made millionaire and a rising interior designer, bridging worlds through love. Sarah's parents, while proud, expressed gentle concern that Andrew's lifestyle might overshadow Sarah's own aspirations. Still, Sarah believed in Andrew's goodness. She believed that under the glittering surface he carried genuine warmth. Their wedding was a storybook affair, set in a lush rose garden overlooking the Pacific Ocean. Influencers, CEOs, and even a few film stars graced the guest list. Sarah felt like Cinderella waltzing into a new dimension. As Andrew pledged fidelity and devotion, Sarah's heart swelled with unshakable conviction. They were fated to walk life's path together. Little did she know how quickly the cracks would form beneath the veneer of glamour and success. For a time, married life seemed magical. Andrew introduced Sarah to his Beverly Hills penthouse, a gleaming testament to his achievements. At first, it was a dream. Floor-to-ceiling windows showcased the Los Angeles skyline. The furnishings were an indulgent blend of sleek, modern, and classic luxury. Andrew's thoughtful gestures were frequent, from plush spa getaways to exquisite pearls that shone around her neck. Nonetheless, in the midst of these lavish gifts, Sarah couldn't suppress the gnawing sense that something was off. Andrew's phone perpetually buzzed with messages, and important meetings snatched him away at odd hours. His occasional evasiveness around finances cast a shadow of unease. Yet, Sarah was determined to keep negativity at bay. She consoled herself high-level business deals required confidentiality. She told herself that it was normal for a hard-charging entrepreneur to be absent at dinner and glued to his phone. She filled her own schedule by taking on small design projects for acquaintances, forging a minor name for herself in upscale interior circles. When she discovered she was pregnant, Sarah hoped that this blessing would draw her closer to Andrew. For a brief interlude, it appeared to work. Andrew expressed heartfelt excitement, guiding her to medical appointments, draping her with protective arms whenever she felt morning sickness, and repeatedly assuring her their future was bright. She glimpsed the affectionate, doting side of Andrew she had initially fallen for. However, as the pregnancy advanced, Andrew's pattern of late-night phone calls and abrupt departures intensified. At times, Sarah sensed a disquieting shift in Andrew's gaze. When she touched on the subject of his abrupt changes in mood or probed gently about the possibility of stepping back from business to focus on family, he waved away her concerns. "I'm doing this for us," he would say, tapping out a quick text message as he spoke, leaving Sarah to wonder if those words were only half true. Then came the fateful discovery. Andrew had left his phone unlocked on the kitchen island. A torrent of explicit texts to an unknown woman later revealed as Naomi confirmed her mounting suspicions. Her worst fears were validated by the brazen, romantic declarations that echoed in the back-and-forth thread. Sarah's world shattered right there, under the fluorescent kitchen lights that illuminated her heartbreak. When confronted, Andrew feigned outrage, blaming Sarah's pregnancy hormones and branding Naomi a stalker. Yet the evidence was irrefutable. His indignation quickly gave way to dismissiveness, and the prospect of marriage counseling or therapy wasn't something he took seriously. Tensions at home rose, thick enough to slice. Sometimes Andrew stalked out of the penthouse in a haze of anger, leaving Sarah in silent tears. She could feel her illusions slip through her trembling fingers, replaced by a swirling sense of betrayal that grew more menacing with each passing day. Desperation led Sarah to consider how she might salvage the relationship. After all, she was carrying Andrew's baby, and her parents had instilled in her a belief that marriage should be preserved through difficult times. But Andrew's behaviors were not the everyday hurdles of newlyweds. Each new business trip, each suspicious text from unrecognized numbers, led her further down a path of distrust. When Sarah confided in Lena, a close high school friend turned private investigator, Lena volunteered to quietly gather hard evidence of Andrew's infidelity. Sarah wasn't initially comfortable with the notion of investigating her husband, but the hopelessness of her situation forced her hand. Within weeks, Lena returned with photos of Andrew entering swanky hotels with Naomi, and with other women too. His business expansions were evidently expansions of a very different kind. But photographs of cheating were only the tip of the iceberg. As Lena dug deeper, she uncovered the reason Andrew's wealth had skyrocketed so suddenly: multiple suspicious LLCs, funneling large sums of money into overseas accounts. A swirl of hush-hush speculation followed Andrew's name in certain real estate circles, but nothing had been proven. Lena explained that while Andrew's real estate empire was legitimate on the surface, a labyrinth of questionable transactions pointed toward money laundering. "Sarah, it's deeper than just an affair," Lena said quietly, handing her a folder thick with documents. "He's under investigation, though it's not officially in the news yet. The authorities suspect large-scale fraud. If he's caught, there's a real possibility he'll do serious time. You need to be careful." Sarah felt conflicted. Andrew's betrayal ran deep, yet she still carried his child. Fear gripped her, imagining the father of her unborn baby behind bars. But fear was soon eclipsed by the moral weight of the situation. Andrew's misdeeds threatened to swallow her life and her baby's life in legal tangles. She realized the marriage was a sinking ship, and she had to decide whether she would drown alongside him or muster the courage to swim away. Sarah's philanthropic activities provided a welcome distraction. She volunteered as a decorator for children's hospitals, orchestrating bright, soothing spaces where young patients could find some comfort. Her efforts eventually led her to a luncheon benefiting Street, Jude Children's Research Hospital, a name widely trusted for its commitment to pediatric health. Sarah's attendance was primarily about doing something meaningful, anything that would help her forget the toxic environment she found at home. At the luncheon, she introduced herself to Nathan Barrett, the polished yet down-to-earth CEO behind a flourishing chain of organic grocery stores. She'd heard his name before in passing. He was a rising figure in both philanthropic and corporate circles. She found him approachable, with kind eyes that radiated compassion more than ego. Nathan complimented her design talents after hearing a snippet of her conversation with other volunteers. In turn, she discovered he was an ardent supporter of sustainable living and children's welfare. Over the next few weeks, their paths crossed repeatedly at charity events. Sarah noticed Nathan's consistent kindness, not just toward her, but to everyone around him. He would spend extra time chatting with staff or volunteers, ensuring they felt acknowledged. She saw none of Andrew's trademark arrogance or the manipulation that permeated her married life. Nathan's empathy was a gentle balm for her anxieties. One afternoon he quietly offered his support. "You seem stressed," he noted, concern shining in his voice. "Have you been taking care of yourself?" Sarah almost teared up at the genuine care she heard. She hesitated, not wanting to reveal her personal strife, but recognized that the gravitational pull of Nathan's sincerity provided her a lifeline of sorts, someone who, at the very least, seemed safe. What she didn't know then was that Nathan harbored his own reasons for disliking Andrew Collins. Months prior, Andrew had tried to strong-arm Nathan into a suspicious land development scheme. When Nathan refused, citing ethical red flags, Andrew lashed out with legal threats and defamation attempts. Though Nathan emerged unscathed, the altercation left him with a strong sense that Andrew was not the honorable entrepreneur he portrayed himself to be. The penthouse had turned into a battlefield. Andrew regarded Sarah with a cold distance, and Sarah tiptoed to avoid igniting his temper. When she finally confronted him about the possibility of divorce, Andrew offered a dismissive laugh. "You wouldn't last a day without me," he sneered, eyes dark with contempt. "And think about the scandal. You're pregnant. What would people say if you walked out on the father of your child?" That night, Andrew's phone calls, hushed and urgent, reverberated through the house. Sarah caught disjointed phrases from behind closed doors. "We need to shift the funds. Wire transfer is too risky right now. Just keep everything off the books for another month." Fear prickled up her spine. She could almost feel the walls closing in on them. If Andrew faced legal collapse, the collateral damage could ruin her and their unborn child. She had to take decisive action. Summoning courage, she contacted an attorney specializing in marital and financial law. The attorney warned that if Andrew was indicted on financial crimes, Sarah, as his wife, might be dragged into the case unless she cooperated with authorities or proved she had no knowledge. To protect herself, and especially the baby, Sarah needed to gather every scrap of evidence that could show her ignorance of Andrew's criminal undertakings. This mission was complicated by her role in Andrew's life. If he noticed her rummaging through his files or personal devices, the consequences could be volatile. Still, she couldn't ignore the growing sense of danger. On a night when Andrew was working late, Sarah mustered enough nerve to enter his home office. She rifled through drawers, his desk phone logs, even the hidden compartment in his desk that she'd once seen him unlock. The secrets she uncovered made her blood run cold. Statements from obscure offshore accounts, coded emails referencing large sums, and phone records with repeat calls to a financial consultant in Zurich. Shaken, she made digital copies of everything, her fingers trembling as she photographed page after page with her phone. Once done, she sat on the office chair, tears beading her eyelashes. She felt both determined and horrified by the reality. Andrew was orchestrating colossal fraud, and his entire empire was a time bomb waiting to explode. Amid her stealth investigation, a twist arrived in the form of Naomi, the very woman whose text messages had shattered Sarah's marital illusions. Naomi phoned Sarah out of the blue, her voice subdued and laced with fear. Apologizing profusely, Naomi confessed she felt like a pawn in Andrew's schemes. "He told me we had a future," she sobbed. "Then, when I pressed him on the logistics, asking if he'd leave you or if we could truly make it official, he pushed me aside." Naomi admitted to unwittingly signing documents for Andrew. He insisted it was just a new property management venture. "But now, I'm afraid my name is on something illegal." Her realization that Andrew set her up as a scapegoat propelled her to risk reaching out to Sarah. She hoped to trade the incriminating emails, texts, and financial data Andrew had once forwarded to her for a chance at legal reprieve. "I messed up," Naomi said, voice trembling. "I'm just trying to make it right now." Initially, Sarah's anger flared. Naomi had brazenly participated in the affair. But that anger slowly melted into a pragmatic acceptance that Naomi could be a crucial ally. If she had even more damning evidence than Sarah already possessed, then their combined information would be enough to protect them both from Andrew's destructive games. Sarah's heart clenched at the irony. The woman who helped wreck her marriage might help save her future. They established a clandestine communication channel. Naomi shared Andrew's forwarded financial memos, Shell Corporation outlines, and bank routing numbers to accounts in the Cayman Islands. It was far more detailed than Sarah's stash. Together, they compiled a robust case that could be handed over to the authorities. Sarah felt a flicker of justice. Andrew's own web was ensnaring him. As her pregnancy entered its final trimester, stress took a toll on Sarah's health. She struggled with insomnia, tormented by nightmares of Andrew escaping justice and pinning everything on her. But she endured, motivated by a fierce instinct to protect her unborn child. One evening, Andrew announced an abrupt business trip to Dubai. Suitcases lined the hallway, and he seemed even more agitated than usual. Looking disheveled and haunted, he threw clothes haphazardly into the bags. Sensing something dire, Sarah confronted him. "Is everything okay?" she asked softly, trying to mask her panic. Andrew turned, eyes narrowed. "I have no time for your nagging," he snapped, his voice trembling. "I need to handle urgent business overseas." Suspicion strangled Sarah. Was he preparing to flee? If Andrew vanished, all her careful efforts to hold him accountable might amount to nothing. She needed to move faster. Within hours of his departure, Sarah made an appointment with her lawyer. Over a tense meeting in a downtown office, they mapped out a strategy for approaching law enforcement. Sarah realized there was no turning back. She forwarded the trove of documents to a secure folder, then, with her lawyer by her side, approached the authorities investigating financial crimes in the Los Angeles area. They listened intently to the details, their eyes bright with recognition at the names and accounts. The agents explained they'd been monitoring Andrew for months, but lacked a linchpin witness. Sarah's evidence and Naomi's could be the final blow. Walking out of that government building, Sarah was equal parts liberated and terrified. Had she become complicit by living in ignorance of Andrew's dealings for so long? Would Andrew sense her betrayal from thousands of miles away? A swirl of questions weighed down her every breath. During these tumultuous days, Sarah found herself at a small cafe in Pasadena, sipping hot tea while trying to quell the fear of Andrew's looming wrath. Unexpectedly, Nathan Barrett slid into the seat beside her. They had planned an informal catch-up to talk about a design project for his corporate headquarters. Yet the moment Nathan saw her pale face and trembling hands, business talk evaporated. Without her intending to, the emotional dam burst. She recounted Andrew's infidelity, her precarious legal position, and the evidence she had turned over. She expected Nathan to recoil at the mention of potential criminal fallout, but he remained calm, resting his elbows on the table, eyes locked on hers, listening without judgment or interruption. When she finished, tears hovering at her lashes, Nathan took a measured breath. "Sarah, your bravery is astounding," he said quietly. "I had my suspicions about Andrew, but I never imagined the scope." He confirmed he, too, had clashed with Andrew over unethical business proposals. Nathan's gentle encouragement made Sarah feel recognized and supported in a way she hadn't felt in years. He offered more than just sympathetic words. He connected her with a well-regarded legal firm specializing in white-collar defense, ensuring she had top-notch guidance. "Whatever happens," he assured, "you're not alone." As they parted, Sarah glanced back at Nathan with a tender gratitude. Something about his compassion and understated strength offered her a flicker of hope. Despite the swirling maelstrom in her life, she realized that pockets of safety and kindness still existed, and Nathan Barrett seemed a steadfast source of both. Andrew's promised week in Dubai stretched to almost a month. Daily headlines speculated on his status. Some tabloids claimed he might be fleeing an imminent indictment, while others reported he was finalizing deals for a lavish skyscraper development. Sarah's nerves wound tighter. She dreaded him returning, but also feared the power vacuum in his absence. Late one night, Andrew crashed back into the penthouse, the stench of liquor clinging to him. A scalding confrontation followed. Andrew railed about traitors in his midst, demanded to know if Sarah had been feeding the press information. His eyes shone with a near manic intensity. All Sarah could do was stand her ground. She was well beyond tears. She said nothing about the evidence or her discussions with the authorities. She wanted to keep him guessing. In the ensuing days, Andrew attempted to pacify her with lavish gifts, an expensive tennis bracelet, spa vouchers, even a new SUV. But there was no remorse in his gestures. It felt more like a transparent attempt to buy her silence. She refused each one. This rejection ignited his temper. The fragile detente shattered one morning when Andrew discovered a legal notice, left inadvertently on the kitchen counter by Sarah's attorney. The paper alluded to upcoming court proceedings. Andrew erupted in fury, shattering a porcelain vase. "So you want to ruin me?" he growled, stepping perilously close to Sarah. She instinctively clutched her growing belly. "Don't you dare play the victim here," he shouted. In that fleeting moment, Sarah knew she had to escape for her own safety and for the baby's sake. She retreated to the bedroom, frantically packing a small suitcase. Just as Andrew banged on the locked door, a loud official knock sounded from the front of the penthouse. Through the peephole, Sarah recognized law enforcement. Relief and dread warred in her chest. They were here, at last, to execute a warrant for Andrew's property and devices. As the officers stormed in, Andrew's bravado crumbled. He tried to block their entry, but they swept past him, brandishing the papers authorizing the search. While Andrew shouted about his rights, an officer quietly informed Sarah that it would be best for her to leave. Clutching her suitcase, she slipped out, heart hammering, to find a mob of reporters snapping photos of her tear-streaked face. She bowed her head and headed for a waiting cab, her entire being trembling with the magnitude of what her life had become. Amid the aftermath of that raid, Sarah found herself facing an immediate question: where could she go? Hotels would be swarmed by paparazzi, and traveling out of state to her parents might attract further negative media attention. On impulse, she dialed Nathan Barrett. When he answered, concern laced his voice. Without hesitating, Nathan invited her to stay at his home in Pasadena. Exhausted and desperate, Sarah accepted. His residence, nestled on a gentle slope overlooking the city, was a testament to understated elegance rather than ostentatious display. Warm wooden floors, inviting furniture, and tall windows that flooded rooms with sunlight made it feel like a safe harbor in an otherwise stormy sea. Nathan's staff discreetly showed her to a comfortable guest room, took her luggage, and offered her tea. In the days that followed, Sarah felt a weight lift, as if she'd stepped out from an oppressive tunnel. Sure, the legal ramifications still loomed, but for the first time in a long while, she slept without tension thrumming through her muscles. Nathan extended his kindness in countless small ways, preparing balanced meals to support her pregnancy, offering a listening ear when nightmares jolted her awake, and even finding a discreet obstetrician so she wouldn't have to face reporters at her usual doctor's office. Gossip columns had a field day with the story, "Millionaire's pregnant wife hides away in CEO's home." The insinuation that she had leaped from Andrew's arms to Nathan's spread like wildfire. Nathan shielded her from most of the vitriol, ensuring that calls from tabloids were routed to his PR firm. Sarah felt grateful for his careful boundary setting, though anxiety about the future still gnawed at her daily. Andrew's luck ran dry when prosecutors publicly filed charges: money laundering, wire fraud, conspiracy to commit financial crimes. Scenes from the courthouse filled national news, featuring Andrew, his once proud shoulders slumped, flanked by expensive lawyers. Denying all allegations, he labeled the proceedings a witch hunt. But no sooner did Andrew emerge on bail wearing an electronic ankle monitor than more damning evidence surfaced from inside his own ranks. Former employees turned state's witnesses. Naomi, too, testified that Andrew manipulated her into signing documents for shell corporations in her name. Emboldened by these developments, Sarah formally filed for divorce, citing Andrew's affairs and irreconcilable legal entanglements. The speed of the meltdown was breathtaking. Andrew had risen like a comet in the real estate world, only to explode in a shower of lawsuits and public condemnation. Private jets and champagne flutes gave way to legal depositions and ankle monitors. Yet Andrew refused to go quietly. He maintained that Sarah was an opportunist, a gold digger conspiring with outsiders to dethrone him. Tabloid headlines broadcast his accusations. Interviews with so-called anonymous sources speculated that Sarah had fed insider secrets to law enforcement in exchange for immunity. The onslaught bruised her public image, but Sarah found solace in her own integrity. She had done the right thing, no matter the smears. Despite resolving to cut Andrew from her life, Sarah found it difficult to dismiss the memories of the man she had once loved. She wept late into the nights, remembering their candlelit dates, the vow he'd made under the wedding arch to cherish her forever. She felt foolish for believing his promises. Therapy sessions helped her gradually peel away the illusions and address her sense of betrayal and self-blame. Meanwhile, her relationship with Nathan deepened, though they carefully navigated emotional territory. She was, after all, pregnant with another man's child and still reeling from Andrew's duplicity. Yet, Nathan's steady presence became her anchor. They shared long talks on the back patio, listening to the hum of cicadas while sipping herbal tea. Sometimes she would break down in tears, expressing guilt over testifying against her child's father. Nathan's gentle reassurance always cut through her turmoil. He made those choices. "You are protecting yourself and your baby," he'd say. "That takes enormous courage." One evening, as Sarah waddled to the living room, her belly now pronounced, she found a homemade dinner spread out on Nathan's sleek dining table. He'd prepared grilled vegetables and a light pasta dish, wanting to ensure her diet was balanced. A wave of gratitude and something akin to affection surged within her. In that simple act, she saw a profound contrast to Andrew's grandiose, meaningless gestures. Nathan's tenderness emerged in real devotion, not in flashy displays. Sarah grappled with conflicting emotions, fear of moving too quickly toward a new bond while still entangled in Andrew's legal crises, and a strong desire to embrace the warmth Nathan offered. Ultimately, she allowed herself the possibility of building a future not defined by betrayal, but by honesty and mutual respect. Eventually, the day arrived for Sarah to testify at a preliminary hearing that would determine if Andrew should face a full trial. Dressed in a modest black dress that skimmed her pregnant form, she entered the courthouse flanked by her lawyer and, discreetly, Nathan. Reporters swarmed, cameras flashing. She felt a surge of nausea, a mixture of stage fright and profound anxiety. Inside, Andrew sat with his legal counsel. His face was tense, his once confident smile replaced by a grim scowl. Sarah felt his gaze burning into her as she took the stand. Over the next several hours, she recounted discovering incriminating documents, overheard phone calls, Naomi's confessions, and the evidence Lena had helped compile. Her voice wavered at times, especially when describing the emotional toll of Andrew's adulteries, but she steadied herself, determined not to let intimidation stifle the truth. Andrew's attorneys attempted to paint Sarah as a scorned partner seeking revenge. They grilled her about her relationship with Nathan, implying an affair. Sarah held firm, clarifying that she'd taken refuge only after Andrew's volatile behavior endangered her. She insisted she wanted no part in Andrew's questionable wealth. Her sole concern was ensuring she and the baby escaped unscathed from his criminal conduct. When she stepped down from the stand, she glimpsed Andrew's expression. It was raw fury laced with desperation. The judge ordered him to stand trial, citing overwhelming evidence. Sarah's heart hammered as Andrew left the courtroom, shooting her a venomous glare that promised retaliation. Still, relief mingled with her dread. She had crossed a crucial threshold, ensuring Andrew would answer for his crimes in front of a jury. Following the hearing, public opinion began shifting. Major newspapers took a more sympathetic view of Sarah, especially once details emerged of Andrew's manipulative business practices. Gossip sites continued to spin conspiracy theories, but reputable outlets commended Sarah's bravery in stepping forward, especially while pregnant. Andrew's image of an upstanding, philanthropic tycoon crumbled fast. Investigative journalists unearthed shady deals, new shell companies, and more women alleging manipulation and financial threats. Sarah began to embrace her identity outside of Andrew Collins's wife. She poured her energy into an interior design business that, ironically, gained traction thanks to her public notoriety. High-profile clients requested her services, drawn by her newly minted status as a figure of resilience and independence. With each successful project, she fortified a future for herself and her child, unchained from Andrew's empire. Living under Nathan's roof, Sarah found a renewed sense of home. Nathan, still careful not to overstep, showed affection in thoughtful gestures, a handcrafted crib in the guest room, a note of encouragement taped to her laptop, a warm hug when the pressure of the trial and the pregnancy overwhelmed her. Eventually, as her due date loomed, she realized that every day brought her closer not just to motherhood, but to the life she was building beyond Andrew's shadow. When Andrew's trial commenced, it captured the nation's attention. Cameras flashed around the courthouse and commentary filled the airwaves. Prosecutors meticulously laid out the labyrinth of illicit transactions, calling Naomi, former employees, and forensic accountants to testify. They produced dozens of emails tying Andrew to money laundering. Each revelation chipped away at Andrew's defensive facade. He tried to appear stoic, but occasionally the cameras caught him clenching his jaw or casting resentful glances at witnesses. Sarah took the stand once more, her pregnancy close to term. She calmly reviewed the timeline of discovering Andrew's double life financially and romantically, and described how she sought legal counsel out of fear for her own liability. Andrew's defense team pressed hard, insinuating that Sarah's cooperation with authorities was a ploy for a favorable divorce settlement. She countered with clarity, "I've requested no financial settlement from Andrew's assets. I only want safety and independence for myself and our child." The atmosphere in the courtroom was charged, particularly when Naomi took her seat. She recounted in painstaking detail how Andrew's persuasion had led her to sign documents for shell companies. She didn't understand, only to realize she could be implicated in serious crimes. Naomi's tearful testimony painted Andrew as a master manipulator driven by greed and lust. Sarah watched from the gallery, wrestling with conflicting emotions, revulsion for Andrew's exploitative acts, pity for Naomi's entanglement, and an odd sense of solidarity with this woman who, albeit once an enemy, had also been victimized. After days of exhaustive arguments and cross-examinations, the jury retired to deliberate. The city braced for a potential spectacle. Would Andrew's wealth and status buy him freedom, or would his downfall become a cautionary tale? The jury's decision thundered through the courtroom, guilty on multiple counts, including money laundering, fraud, and conspiracy. A hush settled, broken only by reporters scribbling furiously. Andrew's face contorted in shock. This was the final blow to his illusions of untouchable power. The judge denied bail, citing Andrew's risk of fleeing the country, especially given his overseas accounts. He was remanded to custody until sentencing. Cameras captured the stark moment he was handcuffed and led away. Despite the swirl of flashes, Andrew never looked back at Sarah. He muttered expletives about the betrayal that had brought him low. Outside, Sarah emerged to a chorus of journalists clamoring for her reaction. Her lawyer ushered her into a waiting car where she finally let out a ragged exhale, tears welling. She felt both deep relief and a hollow sorrow. Andrew had once been someone she dearly loved. Now he was just a criminal who had pushed her beyond every limit. Yet in those tears, she also sensed renewal. A door had closed firmly. The baby's arrival came faster than expected, just a few weeks after the verdict. Sarah was working on design sketches at Nathan's home when she felt an insistent wave of contractions. Panicked, she clutched her belly, breath hitching. Nathan rushed her to the hospital, where her parents met them in the waiting room. The swirl of urgent voices and bright fluorescent lights became a blur to Sarah as pain and anticipation collided. Labor was arduous, but Sarah bore down with fierce resolve, fueled by the knowledge that she was welcoming a new life free from Andrew's toxicity. After hours of contractions, the piercing cry of her newborn daughter filled the delivery room. The doctor placed the infant in Sarah's arms, and in that fleeting moment, the complexities of Andrew's betrayal and the looming chaos faded into the background. Here was a tiny being, entirely innocent, forging her own path in a world that Sarah vowed would be filled with honesty and love. She named the baby Madeline Grace Collins. Despite Andrew's downfall, Sarah felt it was important to acknowledge the paternal link. Grace, because this miracle child symbolized the grace of a second chance in a life once dominated by deceit and heartbreak. Nathan lingered nearby, careful not to intrude on the intimate time Sarah shared with her daughter and parents, yet unwavering in his quiet support. When Sarah, exhausted but joyful, finally returned to a private recovery room, Nathan stepped in. He approached the baby gently, in awe of her tiny fingers and soft coos. Sarah watched the wonder in his expression and felt a rush of gratitude for how he'd shepherded her through the darkest corridors of her life. Motherhood consumed Sarah's days and nights. The hush of feeding Madeline at dawn, the baby's small snuffles lulling in her arms, offered a calming rhythm she desperately needed. While tabloids speculated on Andrew's sentencing and sensationalized every detail, Sarah found solace in the simplicity of newborn care. Spit-ups and diaper changes seemed refreshingly real compared to the relentless swirl of media frenzy. Andrew's sentencing followed swiftly. The judge handed down a severe prison term, stating that his crimes harmed the integrity of the financial system and countless individuals. Andrew made a last-minute, tearful plea for mercy, citing his desire to be present for his child. The judge, unmoved, highlighted that Andrew had multiple opportunities to act lawfully and responsibly, yet chose deceit at every turn. From her quiet vantage point, Sarah felt a strange numbness. She recognized that Andrew's life and reputation lay in ruins, but it wasn't her responsibility to mend or mourn them. Her priority was Madeline, keeping her safe and loved. Through her attorneys, Sarah arranged for a formal custody order granting her full guardianship, with strict guidelines for if and when Andrew might ever seek visitation upon release. She refused to remain tethered to the manipulative impulses of a man who'd proven untrustworthy on every level. As Madeline grew, Sarah gradually reclaimed her identity beyond Andrew's wife or the pregnant victim. Her interior design business blossomed, bolstered by sympathetic coverage and a genuine appreciation for her design aesthetic. She recruited a small staff, including an administrative assistant to handle scheduling and inquiries from prospective clients. Finances no longer loomed as an anxiety, as she'd painstakingly ensured Andrew's assets were off-limits. She preferred forging her own success to relying on anything tainted by Andrew's wrongdoing. Her parents visited frequently, elated to see their grandchild thriving. Sarah's father, the ever-patient English teacher, would read gently to Madeline from children's poetry. Her mother, the ex-softball coach, would cradle Madeline in her arms, humming lullabies. They also noticed Sarah's deepening bond with Nathan, who remained quietly steadfast. Over dinners of home-cooked meals or take-out Thai, they witnessed the subtle warmth between Sarah and Nathan's stolen glances, a soft brush of hands, inside jokes that signaled a growing emotional connection. Despite Andrew's shadow, Sarah felt a sense of rebirth. Counseling sessions helped her process lingering guilt and anger. She admitted how reliant she'd once been on Andrew's validation, how thoroughly she'd let herself be shaped by his charming facade. Bit by bit, she emerged with a stronger sense of autonomy and self-worth. In the hush of early evenings, after putting Madeline to sleep, Sarah and Nathan would sometimes sit on the veranda, the city lights twinkling below. They talked about everything from philanthropic initiatives to stray childhood memories. Nathan opened up about his own heartbreaks, failed relationships that ended because of his demanding schedule or disagreements about moral standpoints. He confessed that meeting Sarah reignited his hope in building a relationship founded on genuine values and mutual respect. Sarah, for her part, felt a quiet certainty forming. She was cautious. Trauma had taught her never to rush, but she recognized that love can flourish in surprising ways, especially when nurtured by authenticity. In Nathan, she found a partner who cared for her well-being rather than using her as a decorative trophy. One mild spring night, as the stars glimmered overhead, Nathan gently took her hand. "You've overcome so much," he murmured. "If it's all right, I'd like to be part of your journey, yours and Madeline's, for as long as you'll have me." Her eyes shimmered with unshed tears. "We're a package deal," she teased softly, then squeezed his hand. In that moment, an unspoken promise passed between them. The scandal of Andrew Collins continued to send ripples through high society. A few of his former associates faced charges for their complicit roles. Luxury properties tied to his empire were sold off to cover legal fees and restitution. The tabloids eventually moved on, hungry for fresh gossip, leaving Andrew's name a faint echo of caution in corporate circles, a lesson in greed, hubris, and the illusions money can buy. From prison, Andrew wrote Sarah sporadic letters, vacillating between apologies and threats, pleas of love and accusations of betrayal. She rarely opened them anymore. The few she read confirmed he was still stuck in the same cycle, refusing to accept accountability, believing there might be a path back into her life if he manipulated the narrative enough. She never wrote back. Instead, she filed the letters away. Her lawyer advised that any threatening content could be grounds for limiting future visitation. Andrew's illusions were no longer her burden. The once unassailable image of Andrew Collins now lay in tatters, and Sarah found closure in knowing she had freed herself and her daughter from his grasp. Months glided by, filled with the joys and trials of caring for an infant's sleepless nights. First smiles and baby laughter that lit up every room. As Madeline's first birthday approached, Sarah decided to celebrate in a modest but heartwarming gathering. She organized a small party at Nathan's home, inviting close friends and family. Even Naomi stopped by, stepping into a realm that felt surreal. No longer the mistress, Naomi had attempted to move forward with her life, taking accountability for her past missteps. In a quiet corner of the celebration, Naomi and Sarah exchanged a few words. Naomi offered a carefully wrapped present for Madeline, a silver bracelet etched with the word hope. Eyes glistening, Naomi explained that she wanted to atone for the damage she'd once contributed to. Sarah, touched by the gesture, thanked her, acknowledging that their shared experience of Andrew's duplicity had forged an unlikely bond. Nathan, standing in the doorway, observed the brief exchange with gentle respect. He later told Sarah how proud he was of her ability to handle complicated emotions with grace. In this new chapter, forgiveness and empathy emerged as guiding principles, helping bury the bitterness. Andrew had ignited. By the time Madeline was toddling around with unsteady steps, Sarah realized just how deeply entwined her life was with Nathan's. She woke each morning in his home, a place that brimmed with warmth and possibility. One evening, after they'd returned from a philanthropic event for children's nutrition, Nathan cleared his throat and produced a small velvet box. Sarah's heartbeat fluttered. She wasn't fully prepared for what she saw when Nathan opened the box. A delicate ring, modest but radiant. Her eyes shot to Nathan's face, and she found him gazing at her with uncharacteristic nervousness. "Sarah," he began, "you and Madeline, you're my family now. I want to spend the rest of my life with you, making sure you both feel safe, loved, and free to pursue your dreams. Will you marry me?" Tears filled Sarah's eyes. She recalled her first marriage proposal, filled with pomp and luxury. This moment was the polar opposite, intimate, genuine, unburdened by facade. She nodded, voice quavering, and whispered, "Yes." In that quiet hallway they embraced, Madeline toddling over to clutch at their legs. Sarah looked down at her daughter's wide, curious eyes and felt a surge of gratitude for second chances and the fierce love that anchored their little family. Their wedding day arrived without the extravagance that once defined Sarah's union with Andrew. Instead, they chose a small gathering in a garden behind Nathan's Pasadena home. Flowers draped trellises. A gentle breeze played among the guests, and light music set a serene tone. Sarah wore an understated gown of lace that complemented her figure. Madeline, perched on Sarah's mother's lap, looked like an angel in a pale pink dress. Naomi stood quietly among the other guests, offering a supportive nod, while Lena beamed as Sarah's maid of honor, proud that her friend had emerged triumphant after all the heartbreak. Sarah's parents shed tears of joy to see their daughter marrying a man of genuine substance. When the officiant declared them husband and wife, applause mingled with birdsong. Sarah exhaled, feeling a warmth envelop her. No spotlight, no paparazzi, no forced illusions, just sincerity. That evening, Nathan and Sarah slow danced under strings of soft lanterns, the hum of gentle conversation surrounding them. After everything, courtroom battles, false accusations, shattered trust, Sarah had discovered a future anchored by empathy, truth, and mutual respect. Years later, Sarah and Nathan strolled a tranquil beach with Madeline, now a spirited toddler scampering along the sand, squealing at the waves. The sun's dying rays illuminated the horizon in brilliant pinks and oranges. Sarah paused to reflect on the journey that led her here. She remembered the nights spent crying into her pillow, pregnant and afraid. She recalled reading news articles labeling her a gold digger or a traitor. She remembered Andrew's final fuming stares as he was escorted to prison. Yet, she also remembered something else, stepping onto a new path rooted in courage. She had faced her darkest fears, found allies in unexpected places, and refused to be broken by betrayal. In doing so, she had discovered the unshakable power of self-worth. Nathan stood beside her, reflecting the very best of love, patient, earnest, and unwavering. Their daughter thrived in this environment of trust and joy. Looking at Madeline chasing the foamy tide, Sarah felt tears of gratitude prick her eyes. The narrative, once overshadowed by Andrew's corruption and infidelity, had rewritten itself into a testament of resilience. She had not merely survived, she had evolved. Holding Nathan's hand, she watched the sun dip under the glimmering waves, confident that any shadows cast by yesterday's heartbreak had no power over her radiant tomorrow. In a world where deceit once threatened to bury her, Sarah transcended the betrayal that upended her life. She bravely faced down a cheating millionaire, unraveled his criminal empire, and protected the precious future growing inside her. Through heartbreak and turbulence, she discovered unwavering allies, forging an unbreakable bond with the very CEO who recognized her true worth. Her journey shows us how renewal can emerge from ruin, how determination can overcome even the most entrenched injustice, and how genuine love can flourish once we shatter the illusions binding us to toxic relationships. If this story of redemption, fierce courage, and second chances resonated with you, please share it with others who yearn for riveting drama and hard-earned triumph. Don't forget to like this video and subscribe to the channel so we can bring you more tales of resilience and hope. Join us for the next adventure, where justice and renewal collide in equally astonishing ways.